a beautiful song for a beautiful season. Hello, I'm Jerry Stewart. Merry Christmas. Sadly, today in America, there's much discussion and dispute about what to do with this day, Christmas. Some want to do away with it completely. Others say, oh no, keep the holiday, but just get rid of any religion in it. But the truth is this, simply and powerfully this. Without Christ, without the Christ child, there would be no Christmas. And consider this, no person in all of our recorded history has had more written about him than Jesus Christ. In fact, the encyclopedia itself devotes more words to Jesus than to Aristotle, Julius Caesar, and the great Napoleon, all combined. No life has been more carefully examined, so carefully noted, and more importantly, no life has reached down so many centuries with so great an impact on so many million of people as the life of Christ. Now, I give you the most powerful, important Christmas story, the story of that first Christmas. It all began in Jerusalem with a young Jewish girl. Her name was Mary. She was chosen by God to carry His only begotten Son. She was very young, perhaps as young as 13, and her pregnancy caused quite a stir. After all, she was a virgin and engaged to a man, Joseph. First, he was reluctant to marry her, knowing he wasn't the father. But when Joseph learned of God's plan through a dream, he was willing to take on whatever might come. It was late in Mary's pregnancy when Joseph was given notice to travel to Bethlehem, his hometown, to be registered and to pay their taxes. Of course, back then, any travel was hard and dangerous. There were thieves and robbers at every turn. The distance they had to travel was over 70 miles of hills and mountains. And of course, there were no buses or planes. Add all this to Mary's pregnancy, and you can see just what a dilemma this must have been. But nevertheless, they had to go. And finally, upon reaching Bethlehem, I'm sure they were both dog-tired. Although Mary had been riding a donkey, she was exhausted. She was pregnant and expecting her child at any moment. When they arrived in the town, well, you know the story. All the inns were full. There was no place to stay until finally Joseph begged for a place that his weary wife could rest. They were given a place in a barn. It was probably cold and drafty and mostly all dirty. Plus, it was full of animals, perhaps animals that had been ridden that day, all day. They were dusty and, well, probably kind of smelly. Nevertheless, this was the chosen place for the King of Kings to be born. Now, for this all-important occasion, just who do you think was invited? Kings and dignitaries? No. When God sent out the invitations through the angels, He went to the shepherds. But just why do you think He invited them? You see, in those days, the occupation of a shepherd was a lowly job. In fact, most people didn't even associate with them because they were typically poor and they carried the strong animal odor of the sheep they cared for. But nevertheless, that night, a host of angels came forth glorifying God with this good news that the Savior of all mankind had been born. They invited these shepherds to come and see, come and worship. First, they were afraid. After all, a whole host of angels. But upon hearing the message and the invitation extended, the shepherds came. And what did they see? A very special event. The angels told them that it was good news of great joy, which shall be for all people. They said, "For unto you today is born a Savior, which is Christ the Lord." And even though the shepherds were told to look for a child lying in a manger, they must have been both shocked and surprised to find any newborn child in a barn, but much less the long-awaited Christ child. At first they might have had their doubt, but as they looked at the scene, there was truly something special happening there. They knew this newborn babe was more than just a mere child. They fell to their knees in reverence. They knew they were in a holy place. And then we're told they went out into the night praising and glorifying God for all they had seen and heard. But there were at least 3 others invited that night, the wise men. They were from the east and they followed the star. Although they didn't make it to the manger that night, they did come bringing gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh, gifts for a king. The very first Christmas gifts given. And that is how it all began. But you still ask, why God's Son, born to a girl from a simple life, born in a barn, with only animals and lowly shepherds to witness the blessed event? Actually, I believe the answer is quite simple and quite amazing. God wanted there to be no doubt that this child, His Son, came to earth for everyone, even the lowliest. And later in life, when the time was right, this little child, now a man, would give the greatest gift, his life, as a sacrifice, once again, for everyone, even the lowliest. For unto us a child is born, for us a son is given. He shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Wow, what a wonderful and amazing story. I am so glad that Jesus came. Aren't you? So as we look at the manger scene this Christmas, let us look at the Christ child and be amazed and to glorify Him. But let us not stop there. Let us not stop until we go to the foot of the cross and see the greatest gift ever given. I'm Jerry Stewart. God bless you. Merry Christmas.